So you think you know a thing or two about the internet, right? Well, maybe not as much as you assume. Today I'm going to be going over 10 common myths and misconceptions about the internet in general, and some of them might surprise you. So let's just jump into it. Starting off with number 1, did you know that the terms World Wide Web and Internet are actually referring to different things? The Internet is probably what you're imagining, and it refers to the global network of computers and servers all interconnected and have different protocols running on them, like IP or TCP for connecting websites, all that sort of thing. Whereas the World Wide Web refers to the part of the Internet that is basically just websites. That's pretty much it. So that includes things like HTML files for displaying a website, or the HTTP protocol for transmitting information across a network about a website. So if you say you're going to browse the internet, you could also say you're going to browse the web, because it's technically a subset of the internet. And it should be no surprise that that's why we have things called web browsers. It's literally for browsing the web part of the internet. All right, next up we have 2 more terms that are commonly conflated, which are the deep web and the dark web, which are actually 2 totally different things. The deep web is not actually as mysterious as it might sound. It basically just refers to any part of the internet that is not indexed by search engines. So this could be anything from a private social media profile to something you have to log in to see, or even files you have hosted on a cloud service provider. Or in other words, any part of the web that is below the surface and not publicly available. Now, the dark web, on the other hand, consists of websites that require special software to even access at all. The most common example is the Tor network, the Onion router, and that has Onion sites that can only be accessed when using a Tor browser. However, there are other similar examples you might not have heard of, such as the Invisible Internet Project, or I2P, and something called Freenet. Moving on, the next few some of you may consider common sense, but these are actually still pretty common misconceptions. The next one being that using private browsing mode on your web browser makes you invisible, such as incognito mode. In reality, it does no such thing. It basically just deletes the local cache of web history and cookies for that particular session. But anything you do on the web, like going to websites or searching something on Google, obviously Google is keeping a copy of anything that you're doing in web logs, and same for most other websites. So just deleting the local copy of that isn't going to do much. Another misconception I've mentioned before is that any website where you see it has the lock, meaning it's a HTTPS secured connection, that means that the website is trustworthy. And that is absolutely false. A lock or HTTPS connection only means that the connection between you and the website is secure and no one can really see what you're doing there. But it says nothing about the security or trustworthiness of the website itself. It could still be a malicious website and you could still download a virus from it, no matter what kind of connection you have to it. Next, we have a misconception in regards to download speed, and that is the difference between megabytes and megabits. And I blame internet service providers for this. Obviously, they want to be able to advertise the highest number. So they say 100 megabit internet or something like that, without telling you that 1 megabyte is actually equal to 8 megabits. So if you're paying for 80 megabit per second speed, that's only going to translate to 10 megabytes per second when you go to download a file. And most of the time, when you do download something, the operating system is going to show the speed in megabytes per second, because that's usually how it shows in the file explorer for file sizes. And really the only other place you see megabits used as the units are networking equipment. And I guess it has to do with the fact that storage on computers historically has been in bytes, because 1 byte equals 1 character. So if you were storing text files, it made sense to just use bytes. Whereas with a internet connection or network connection, it could be transmitting any type of data. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but it still is confusing to a user who don't know that the capitalization of the letters makes a big difference. So if you ever wondered why when you went to download it seemed like it was a much smaller number than what you were paying for, that's why. Now, before we continue, I want to thank today's sponsor, Mine, which is a really cool service. Mine lets you find out which companies have your data and lets you control where you do or don't want to keep it. You start out by going to saymine.com and just sign in with your email account you want to analyze and give it a minute to do its thing. Mine will only analyze the subject line and center of the email, the first line preview snippet, plus some metadata to figure out which companies you've interacted with. But as their privacy policy states, they don't collect the content of your email for analysis. Then when it's done, it shows you the results. For me, there are over 260 companies that have data on me, which I don't really like. On the My Footprint page, I can see a selection of these companies, but I got up the courage and looked at the tab showing all the companies, and it is eye-opening. By clicking on a company, it shows me, for example, that EA stores info like my financial and identity data, and even online behavior data and more. And I can see that it has a pretty elevated exposure risk. Here's another company that I barely remember signing up for, but never ended up using, and I don't really want them having my data. So I can just click reclaim, and it will compose an email that will be sent directly from my inbox to the company. And this point is important because companies generally only honor requests coming directly from the person. Then, after you allow it to send the email, you can track your requests and cancel it within an hour if you change your mind. And since privacy is important for businesses too, Mine has created a solution for companies to help manage their own privacy operations, including automation of handling requests from consumers. So if you want to start reclaiming your own data, be sure to visit saymine.com and sign up, and I'll also put the link in the description. And with all that being said, let's continue. Next up, we have another one having to do with download speed, but this one has been propagated by internet service provider marketing departments, and that is a higher internet speed always makes everything faster and better. For some examples, we need only look at any ISP's product page for their internet plans, like Xfinity. Did you know that 400 megabits per second is good for multiplayer gaming? No, not 200. It doesn't say it there. That's not enough. But if you get 1200 megabits per second over a gigabit, you get pro-level gaming. But the funny thing is that gaming online uses an extremely low amount of bandwidth. I'm talking usually well below even 1 megabit per second, yet it's a marketing point that all the ISPs use for some reason. Or we can look at Verizon Fios' gigabit plan page. Everyone in your home can work, game, and stream with ultra-fast upload speeds. Okay, what is your family streaming? Uncompressed Blu-ray rips? High upload capacity for better video calls. Look, the only way gigabit is going to make your video calls better is if you're streaming your Zoom meetings in IMAX. So when would paying for a faster internet connection be worth it? Well, it's going to depend on where you're coming from. So if you have 50 megabit internet and you have a family of 4 people and there might be multiple people trying to watch Netflix in 4K, which from my understanding is about 25 megabits per second, yeah, actually going to maybe 100 or 150 would actually free up enough bandwidth for everyone to be doing it simultaneously. But basically anything above 100 or 150 megabit per second is only going to benefit if you're downloading large files like games from Steam, which may definitely apply to you, but just be aware that not all websites that you may be downloading from can even support or allow that download speed. So Steam is one where it'll basically max out your connection up to gigabit or more, and a lot of other game services like Epic Games and stuff will max out your connection, so it might be worth it there. So just be aware the next time you go to buy an internet service plan, realize what you actually might be using it for. Okay, moving on, the next misconception is that you can only get a virus if you click and download something, and simply visiting a website won't do anything as long as you don't do anything. While this is generally true with modern web browsers being pretty good at security for individual websites and isolating them and stuff like that, there are exceptions. For example, there are occasionally so-called zero-day exploits that may be released for a web browser where it's an exploit that an attacker could use to bypass the security of your web browser and potentially execute code on your system and download a file without you actually doing anything. And the reason it's called a 0 day is basically because it was known about for 0 days before it was known to the public. When this happens, software developers, no matter what kind of software it is, web browser or not, usually scramble to patch the software and get people to update it as soon as they can. And you might not realize that there are several of these generally that happen every year with Google Chrome and other Chromium-based browsers, so it is absolutely critical that you keep your browser up to date. Now, Chrome and other web browsers these days are really good at auto-updating in the background. A lot of people don't even realize that's happening. So keep your browser and also your operating system especially up to date. Don't put them off because a lot of times there's security updates. Okay, this next one I've seen occasionally, and that is that social media websites own anything that you post as the user, when in reality it's a little bit more nuanced. Yes, you do grant social media websites a license to use what you upload pretty much in every way they want, but you don't actually transfer ownership. You usually keep the ownership, so you're just granting them a license, and usually it encompasses, again, pretty much being able to do anything with it. You'll see it's royalty free worldwide, whatever words they use in the terms and conditions. And a lot of that is actually necessary because technically displaying the image that you post for your friends to your friends is distributing it and stuff like that. So they need that ability, or sometimes they may use it to profit off it, of course, but just be aware that you still do own the copyright to anything you produce, and you don't actually need to register a copyright for you to own the copyright. You own it from the second that you create it. That, I guess, is another misconception, but I'll throw that in there. All right, next up we have one that's pretty big, and that is the assumption that all web browser extensions are safe just because you're downloading it from the Chrome Web Store or whatever. But in reality, historically, extension app stores have not really been policed as well as other app stores like on your phone. Definitely not as much as Apple, and even the Google Play Store for Android apps has had troubles with malicious apps being on there. But Chrome extensions, it seems like Google really doesn't keep an eye on the security of these extensions to a degree that I think they really should, because it's easy to find articles with examples of hundreds of malicious Chrome extensions being discovered, and they were just allowed to sit there on the App Store, hundreds of them. And a malicious Chrome extension can do just as much damage as any other kind of virus. You may notice when you install an extension, sometimes it will ask to be able to access the data on all websites you visit. Sometimes that's essential for the purpose of the extension, but if a malicious actor wants to just ask for that permission that most people are going to grant, that's totally unrelated to the purpose of the extension, they could change things on the website, they could steal anything you type in potentially. I mean, really, the sky's the limit to what they can do, and they have in the past. Okay, now finally we have one that's kind of like 2-in-1, and that is that VPNs and Tor network guarantee absolute anonymity. There are separate reasons for these two, but generally it is possible in some circumstances to be de-anonymized when using services like this. I would say this is more so with Tor, because the way Tor works is you're routing your internet connection through many different nodes. So you have an entry node, a bunch of other nodes, and then an exit node. And what governments will usually do, like the FBI, is they will operate a whole bunch of these nodes themselves. And you better believe that they definitely do operate a lot of these nodes. So if your connection to a website has a FBI entrance node or an exit node, or especially both of them, they can do some things to unmask you, and especially for exit nodes and if they have both. I'm not going to get into detail about the different techniques they use. You can look that up yourself. It's pretty well known. But one example is they could use what's called a correlation attack, because the entrance node can see the actual originating IP address of a connection, and then the exit node can see where a connection is going, but you can't necessarily match up the two because there's nodes in between. But what you can do is look at the timing of the connections, and you say, every time this person sends a few packets, another one comes out this end. Every single time, it's probably the same person. And then you can make the connection, this person's trying to access this website. Now with VPNs, or at least good ones that don't keep logs, you generally don't have to worry about this kind of issue because you're connecting directly to the VPN server, which is then connecting directly to the website. But if a government agency has enough resources, which they probably do, and the determination to catch you specifically, I'm sure there's a lot of things they can do, like potentially going to your internet service provider and getting a warrant there and tracking anything you connect to. Even if it's a VPN, then they could maybe go to the data center for the website they believe you're visiting, and again, they could do some kind of correlation that way. I don't know, that's a random idea I had. I'm sure in reality the government has a whole bunch of tricks up their sleeve that they're not going to tell anyone about. So I think that covers 10 misconceptions that I've seen about the internet. Let me know in the comments though if I missed any, and also check down there because maybe someone left one that I didn't mention. Thanks again to Mind for sponsoring the video. Be sure to visit saymind.com and start reclaiming your own data too. The link's in the description. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up for my YouTube algorithm overlords. And if you want to keep watching, the next video I'd recommend is one where I was talking about some hidden features in Microsoft Word that I think a lot of people will find useful. You can just click on that right there. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.